Pat Smith with us, three-man front, joins us on 365 Sports. Pat, it's been another busy week. Obviously, we can get into some of the juggling for who's going to survive in the SEC, but the Auburn, I saw your tweets constantly over the last 2 or 3 weeks. Could that have gone another week, or was it going to get really even more toxic if it could have?
Guys, always a pleasure to be on. No, the die had been cast weeks ago. They were just waiting for an opportunity. You know, they did not want to do what Texas A&M did and fire Jimbo like they did after a win against Mississippi State, or fire Napier like they did after a win, you know, in the swamp. So Auburn, the die had been cast for a while now. This offense has been putrid. He was hired at Auburn for one reason and one reason only, is because he was supposed to be the quarterback whisperer. It's been a disaster, one of the worst offenses in the SEC for the last 3 years. It was going to happen, but having lost to the worst team in the SEC defensively, it was time to make a change, and that's what happened.
So how much of this was, I mean, you said it's just the quarterback. So all the other stuff that's been out there about golfing, taking time to go watch other people golf, all that stuff, did that not really matter to Auburn in the fact that it's just about the quarterback?
It really didn't. I mean, it played into the whole narrative when it was all said and done that he was going to be fired, but that really wasn't a big story. It was just the fact that you spent nearly $2 million on a quarterback. You tried to get Lenora Sellers from South Carolina. They couldn't bring him in. So it was either John Napier or it was going to be Jackson Arnold. So they ended up, this was Hugh Freeze. He wanted Jackson Arnold, and he just has not been able to develop any quarterbacks. And that has been the big problem. So all the other stuff was great for sports talk shows like mine, you know, to kind of talk about his golf game and his handicap and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, you know, the defense has been lights out. DJ Durkin's done just an outstanding job on that side of the ball, but offensively, they have not been able to run it. They can't throw it. And the quarterback that he brought in, that he handpicked, has just not been able to get that going. I mean, listen, the game that you guys saw in your town of Waco, that was the best game of the year, hands down, offensively for this Auburn football team. And they just have not been able to build on that throughout the year.
Pat, what do you think of the pool that they're jumping into now with this coaching carousel we've witnessed develop very quickly over the last few weeks? I mean, it's various other SEC jobs. There might be more that join the fray. There almost assuredly will be nationally. Just kind of what sort of do you think of the market and where Auburn fits in jumping into it at this point?
Well, one thing's for sure, you know, when you have 25% of the SEC looking for head coaches, that's going to be problematic. But I really do believe Auburn is going to be fishing on their end of the pond. That's not going to be the same as, let's say, a Florida or even maybe even LSU. Now, I do think they're going to cross-pollinate when it comes to John Sumrall. John Sumrall has done an outstanding job at Tulane. He's an Alabama guy. He grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. He played linebacker at Kentucky. He came back to the state of Alabama. He was very successful at Troy University, which is right down the road from Auburn. He's done a good job in New Orleans for Tulane. That is who right now, if you were to put that hot board up, he is the number one name and candidate that most Auburn people are gravitating to. I'm also hearing other names. Brent, he's an Alabama guy. He went and played in a suburb of Birmingham. And of course, he was offensive line coach for Nick Saban. He's done a good job in Atlanta. You know, would he be ready to come to the SEC? So I think over the next couple of weeks, you're going to start hearing a lot more names. But Sumrall and LSU and Auburn and Sumrall, those are names that are kind of cross-pollinating. But I really do believe that Auburn is going to be on a completely end of the pool as opposed to the LSUs and the Floridas.
Yeah, so they don't have to win the press conference or a big fish then. Is that what you're saying?
No, they need a ball coach, guys.
Yeah.
That's what they need. I mean, and you know, they brought Hugh Freeze back because he won 2 games against Nick Saban. He was revolutionary when he came to his offense, but everybody's caught up to what Hugh Freeze was trying to do. And if you don't have an elite quarterback, as you guys know, in any league, especially the SEC, you're not going to be successful. And that's what's happened at Auburn.
Pat, when you look at around the SEC, and like Florida feels like they're Lane Kiffin or bust, and that is something that they have as a leadership through different athletic directors. They kind of do this, and then they wind up having to hire their second or third choice. I think back to, and I'm sure you remember this, when they hired Ron Zook, he was not their first choice. They thought they were going to get Mike Shanahan. I don't know why they thought they were going to get Mike Shanahan, but they thought they were going to get Mike Shanahan when he was winning Super Bowls. They just kind of do this. So if they don't get Lane Kiffin, they find themselves hiring another Jim McElwain or Will Muschamp or someone like that?
I think the number one target, if they make Lane tell him no, just like I think personally, guys, I think Lane is staying in Oxford. I don't think he's going to LSU. I don't think he's going to Florida. I think he's going to stay put exactly where he is. Let's mark him off the board for the courtesy of this conversation. I think where Florida would turn to Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, that is going to be a hot name. I think Eli could potentially be one of those guys that could be in the mix ultimately at Auburn or Florida. And listen, I've talked to some Florida people down in Gainesville, and I know you guys might laugh, but James Franklin is a name that you're probably going to hear for that job. I know he could never win the big game, but he had success in the SEC when he was at Vanderbilt. Obviously, the Florida people, it's not going to be their number one choice, but you know, when you start clicking off these boxes of guys that either want to stay put where they are or they just don't want to go to Gainesville, then you're going to start going down that pecking order. And I think you're going to look at guys like Drinkwitz and Franklin potentially. That might not be the biggest names in the SEC or let's say college football, but that might be where they're going to have to go throw their lines in the water and try to see if they can get.
You know, you mentioned Auburn's best game was against Baylor. That says quite a bit about what Baylor's been facing with their defense all year, hasn't it?
Well, listen. Now, Auburn people will tell you that because of some officiating, some questionable things that happened in Norman, Oklahoma, and then of course the infamous, was it a touchdown? Was it a fumble against Georgia at the end of the first half in that game at Jordan-Hare Stadium? In week 3 of SEC play for Auburn, that if those things had kind of turned around, Auburn's season could have been different. But, we thought coming out of the Baylor game that Auburn kind of found their identity, what they wanted to do. But as soon as they got back from Waco, all of a sudden you got Hugh Freeze trying to make Jackson Arnold a pocket passing quarterback, which kind of confused all of us. And then when you saw them struggle against Ball State and struggle against South Alabama, then all of a sudden we started going, okay, now this could be problematic. But it just kind of went downhill after that game in Waco as far as an offensive standpoint. Never really got their identity of what they really wanted to be.
How much has Oklahoma, I don't want to say a surge because they lost to Ole Miss right before that, but the win against Tennessee and now Texas with their run after winning 2 games against top 10 teams. How much does that muddy the waters in a way? And who's going to survive out of the SEC before it's all said and done, if it is only 3 that get in?
It's going to be fascinating because, tonight is going to give us a little bit of an indication of where the SEC currently stands and how this committee particularly looks at the strength of schedule and how that's going to play out. But it's going to be fascinating. I mean, Oklahoma, with them on that back end of the schedule, they get to go to Tuscaloosa. And listen, they just played in a hostile environment up on Rocky Top, and they got out of there with a win. They beat Alabama last year. They come into Bryant-Denny in a couple weeks. That's going to be a strong indication. And Texas still has to go between the hedges. So still a lot of really great football left to be played in this conference to see where the pecking order is going to come out. But I think Texas and Oklahoma both, they're going to be right in the mix with the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Ole Misses of the world and the Texas A&Ms when it's all said and done.
Yeah, let's not forget the Aggies right there at the top with what they have.
Absolutely.
Of course, tough road trip to Missouri and Columbia coming up this week.
But for those Aggies, Pat, the way it's broken has been pretty good for this down the stretch where Matt Zoller's this week and not Bo. South Carolina's a bit of a mess. And then you've got Samford and then Texas. So their path has gotten immensely easier over the last couple of weeks, and they just seem to keep getting better. So if Mike Elko can keep this up, this could be historic for them.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I fully believe that they will be in Atlanta. Now, who they'll play in Atlanta, whether it's going to be Alabama or Georgia or somebody else sneaks in because of all the crazy tiebreakers. But no, he's done a fantastic job in College Station. And like you said, his team, as you watch that from afar, you can tell that they're just getting better and better week in and week out. So, yeah, I think Mike Elko has done a tremendous job.
Pat, thank you. As always, appreciate it. We will obviously have you on again. We'll look at those standings tonight, but thank you for your time. We appreciate the insight.